give it up for Angelo Leotta. Angelo, come on up. Angelo.
Hello. Okay, hi, kids. So, a couple years ago, I went to Japan to teach English, because that's what 20-something white guys do. And so, I'm in like the middle of nowhere, Japan, and I get an apartment, and it's kind of lonely. And so, I asked my boss if I can get a cat. And they talk to the landlord, and they say, no, you can't get a cat. Okay. So about 2 weeks later, I'm at a public school, not with my boss or anything, and a kid comes in with what looks like a rat. And there's kind of a ruckus, and everybody's freaking out. We come out, and it wasn't a rat. It was a newborn baby kitten with the umbilical cord still in. And there were 3 of them. And they were abandoned under the school. And so I'm kind of waiting for one of the teachers to do something and to kind of take charge. And everybody's like, oh, okay, nice. And I realized that no one's going to do anything. And so I was like, all right, I know what I got to do. So I take the cats home, knowing that I'm not allowed to have them. And the black one was colder than my palm. It was terrible. So I brought him home, and in Japan, there's a piece of furniture called a kotatsu, which is basically a coffee table with a heater underneath, and it was a perfect incubator. So I put the baby kittens, in the incubator, and I go back to work. So I come back expecting to find at least one of them dead. And they're not, and so I go to a vet, and I figure out what to do, and I have to go back to work, and I'm splitting up my half-an-hour breaks, and thankfully, I'm only 15 minutes away from work, so I can run home, take care of the cats, run back to work, run home, and nobody knows about the cats. And every time I go back, I'm expecting to find one of them dead, because the mortality rate of baby kittens that young with no mother is very high. So this goes on for a while, and they're doing all right, except for the black one. I go to the vet, and the vet's another story. But I go to the vet, and he's looking at the black one, and he's like, oh, and my Japanese is okay, and his English is very bad, and he's trying to describe the black one, and so he gets out the dictionary, and we're looking through the dictionary, and he points to grave, and I'm like, oh. I'm like, all right, and I'm preparing myself, because they're so fragile, and I'm like, all right, at least one is gonna die, it's gonna be okay. I wanted to name them too, because I didn't want them to die. So I quickly thought of 3 names. I named them Biscuit, Shinji, and Pip. And so months go by, and they're very, very high maintenance. They have to be fed every 2 hours, and they have to be pooped every 2 hours, which means the mommy cat usually licks their genitals to stimulate them. And if there's no mommy cat, then you have to lick them. So no. I just had a wet cloth, and I'm just rubbing it, you know. So I take a wet cloth and to get him going, you know, and Biscuit, the black one, the grave one, he's really constipated, so I end up having to lube up a Q-tip and put it in his butthole to get the poop to come out. And this is happening every like 2 to 3 hours, and I'm also kind of worried because I just can't come home every 2 hours because the work doesn't know about it. I can't tell them. And I'm rushing home every 2 hours to try to take care of these cats and warm up the formula and feed, and there's 3 of them, and they're bugging out. But months went by, and they all lived. And the one never lost its sucking reflex, so it would just keep sucking. And at one point, they were all together, and they were all boys, and he started sucking on the genitals, thinking that it was the mommy's, teat. But he was just giving fellatio to his brothers. And so I had to separate them, and it was heartbreaking seeing the cats trying to get to each other for warmth, but they had to be separated because they were drinking each other's pee. So Pip never lost that, and so at one point, in the middle of the night, he would come and suck on my earlobe, and he would just sucking, and I would push him away, and then he would suck on the skin, your weenus. This is called, that's your weenus. He would suck on my weenus. And if I kicked him out of the room, he would just cry all night. So it was either get sucked by my kitten or listen to him cry all night. So I was so happy. They were my little buddies, and I didn't only get 1 cat, I got 3, and eventually work found out about it, and I got in a load of trouble. And at that point, my relationship with my work was deteriorating, and I was ready to tell them that I'm just going to go home and take my cats. If you tell me I have to get rid of them, I'm leaving. But they were kind of cool. They were like, you can keep them, but why don't you just put them in a cage? And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, well, just put him in one room. I'm like, I'm not going to do that either. And they're like, oh, but please do it. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So my time in Japan was coming to an end, and I, of course, wanted to take all 3 home. It's weird when you raise an animal from birth. It's different because you're their mommy, you know? They sucked on your weenus. Like, it's rough. But I was like, I cannot take 3 home. So I gave Pip to my friend. He was the wily one. And then I had 2. And I'm like, I'll take 2 home. And I was like, no, I can't do that. So I took Biscuit, the grave one, my little black buddy. So I brought him home, and you guys are gonna hate me for this, but like a month after he was hit by a car when I got home, yeah. And it was a rainy day, and I come out, and he's bleeding from every orifice, and he was dead, and it was heartbreaking. So that night, we buried him, and it's actually a night that my father can't talk about because I was so upset. It was actually more traumatic to see my father see me that upset than it actually was for me to lose my best buddy kitten. But he was my buddy, and it was really, the 3 cats, especially Biscuit, my little black buddy, really made life in Japan a real joy. And he came to the earth for that, and then when his duty was over, he left, and that's my story.